My mom secretly pushed my sister to steal my boyfriend. The truth I exposed left everyone speechless. This all went down about 10 years ago, back when I was 19, and the world still felt like it had some kind of order to it, like the stories you read in books or saw in movies. Life, for the most part, was pretty good, or at least that's the version of life I had sold myself. It was the holiday season, that magical time of year when the air smells like pine needles and cinnamon, and family obligations feel less like obligations and more like traditions. But this particular Christmas, that carefully constructed picture frame of my life shattered into a million tiny, sharp pieces. Back then, I was dating this guy, Nick. He wasn't just a guy, he was my first real boyfriend, the kind you're sure you're going to marry. We'd been together for almost 2 years, which felt like an eternity at that age. I was that girl, the one who doodled his last name with mine in notebooks, the one who planned our future in her head with a certainty that bordered on delusion. We were going to get married, have a couple of kids, a dog, and live in a house with a white picket fence. I had no reason to doubt him because he always seemed just as committed, just as wrapped up in our little bubble as I was. He'd look at me like I was the only person in the room, and that feeling was addictive. Then there was my older sister, Claire. 2 years my senior, she was the sun I orbited around. Growing up, she was everything I wanted to be. Smart without trying, effortlessly popular, and she just seemed to have this innate sense of how to navigate the world. She was my role model, my confidant, my best friend. We did everything together, or at least we used to. So, when Nick and I became a thing, introducing him to her was a no-brainer. It was a rite of passage. I wanted the two most important people in my life to like each other, to see what I saw. I wanted her approval, a stamp of authenticity on my happiness. Big mistake, a massive, life-altering mistake, but the full weight of it wouldn't crash down on me until that fateful Christmas. The family get-together was at my parents' house, the same place we'd gathered for years. But from the moment I walked in, the vibe was off. It was subtle, like a song played in the wrong key. The air was thick with a tension I couldn't name. Claire, usually the center of gravity in any room, was distant, her smiles not quite reaching her eyes. She'd laugh at something, but it was a hollow sound. And Nick? Nick was just sketchy. He was jumpy, his phone seemed permanently attached to his hand, and he'd avoid my gaze, looking just over my shoulder instead of at me. My gut was screaming at me, a high-pitched alarm bell that something was deeply, fundamentally wrong. But I ignored it. You don't expect your own sister, your golden child sister, to be the source of that kind of unease. You don't expect your forever boyfriend to be acting like a stranger. I chalked it up to holiday stress, to the general chaos of having the whole family under one roof. I told myself I was being paranoid, that the perfect picture I'd painted in my head was just getting a little smudged, not broken. I clung to that denial, a flimsy shield against a truth I wasn't ready to face. I had no idea that the foundation of my world was already crumbling, and the people I trusted most were the ones holding the sledgehammers. A few days after Christmas, the illusion finally shattered. I found out exactly what had been going on, and when I say found out, I mean I stumbled into the epicenter of the earthquake with my own 2 eyes. I was heading to Claire's room to borrow her hair straightener, a mundane, everyday task. Her door was slightly ajar, which wasn't unusual. I pushed it open without knocking, a casual familiarity born from years of sisterhood. And there they were, Nick and my sister. Claire was pressed against her dresser, and Nick was leaning over her, their faces locked in a kiss that wasn't sisterly or friendly. It was the kind of kiss I thought was reserved for me, the kind that was supposed to mean forever. Time didn't just stop, it warped. The sounds of the house faded away, the air grew thick and heavy, and all I could see was them. My heart didn't just break, it exploded in my chest, sending shards of pain through my entire body. I stood there, a silent, invisible ghost in my own life story, just staring. My brain couldn't process the image, couldn't reconcile the two people I loved most in the world with the betrayal playing out in front of me. What do you even say in a situation like that? There are no words. They didn't notice me for what felt like an eternity, but was probably only a few seconds. Then Nick's eyes flicked up and met mine in the mirror. He froze, his face draining of all color. Claire followed his gaze, and her expression was one of pure, unadulterated panic, a deer caught in the headlights of a speeding truck. There was no denying it, no explaining it away. The truth was right there, ugly and raw. My boyfriend and my sister. The two pillars of my world had just teamed up to demolish it. A wave of something hot and violent surged through me, a toxic cocktail of rage, heartbreak, and profound shock. My chest felt so tight I could barely breathe, and a sour taste rose in my throat. I thought I was going to be sick right there on the hallway rug. I managed to choke out a single strangled question, something that sounded like, "Are you serious?" But it came out as a pathetic whimper. That was my only contribution to the scene. After that, I turned and ran. I didn't even know where I was going. I just knew I had to get out, to escape the suffocating walls of that house and the poisonous air inside it. I bolted out the front door, not bothering to grab a coat or my keys. The cold December air hit my face like a slap, but it was nothing compared to the icy chill that had seized my heart. I just kept running, down the street, past the familiar houses decorated with twinkling lights, until my lungs burned and my legs gave out. I ended up in my car, parked on some random side street, and then the dam broke. The tears came, hot and endless, accompanied by these gut-wrenching sobs that shook my entire body. My mind was a chaotic mess, replaying the image over and over again. The two people I trusted most in the world, the two people I had built my life around, had stabbed me in the back. And I didn't know how to process it, how to even begin to handle the magnitude of that kind of betrayal. Hours later, as I sat huddled in the driver's seat, staring blankly out the windshield, a sharp rap on the window made me jump. It was my parents, their faces etched with a concern that, at that moment, I mistook for compassion. For a fleeting second, I thought, "They're here. They're going to hold me and tell me it's going to be okay." I was wrong, so terribly wrong. When I rolled down the window, my mom didn't wrap me in a hug. She told me to calm down. My dad, standing behind her, echoed the sentiment, adding that I needed to think rationally. Rationally. The word hung in the air between us, absurd and insulting. They tried to reason with me, explaining that these things happen, that it's just a guy, that there are other fish in the sea. They spoke about my heartbreak as if it were a minor inconvenience, a scraped knee that just needed a bandage. But it wasn't just about Nick. It was about Claire, my own flesh and blood, my sister, betraying me in the most intimate and devastating way possible. They kept repeating platitudes about family, about how blood is thicker than water, and that I had to forgive her eventually. The sheer audacity of it was staggering. What the hell was I supposed to forgive? The months of lying? The secret relationship? The public humiliation of having the two people I loved most choose each other over me? It got even worse when Claire, with my parents flanking her like bodyguards, finally approached me. She had the nerve to look at me with these big crocodile tears in her eyes and say, "I'm so sorry. We didn't mean to hurt you. It just happened. Nick and I, we just have feelings for each other." Feelings for each other? The words were a slap in the face. They hadn't just happened to fall into each other's arms. They had been sneaking around behind my back, building a secret world while I was busy planning our future. And now they were trying to package their betrayal as some kind of unavoidable romantic destiny. I couldn't even look at her. I looked right through her, at my parents, who were nodding along as if she was making perfect sense. A cold, hard resolve settled over me. I told her, in a voice that was surprisingly steady, that she was dead to me. I said I never wanted to see her or speak to her again, and I meant it with every fiber of my being. But of course, my parents weren't having it. They doubled down on the family forgiveness narrative, accusing me of being dramatic and immature. My dad, the man who was supposed to protect me, actually told me to grow up and get over it. My own father. In that moment, I felt like I was losing my entire family, not just my sister and my boyfriend. It was as if I had been declared the villain in their story, the unreasonable one for not immediately forgiving an unforgivable act. I had lost my boyfriend, my sister, and now my parents too. I was completely and utterly alone, adrift in a sea of pain with no life raft in sight. The months that followed were a blur of gray. I was a ghost haunting my own life. I went to work, I came home, and I went to bed. That was it. That was my entire existence. I stopped talking to my friends, stopped answering my phone, stopped caring about anything. The world outside my bedroom window felt like it was happening to someone else. I was numb, a walking wound. The only person who managed to penetrate the thick fog of my depression was my best friend, Sam. She was a force of nature, a stubborn, loyal whirlwind who refused to let me drown. She'd show up at my apartment with bags of groceries, force-feed me soup, and drag me out of bed for a walk around the block, even when I fought her every step of the way. She was the one who made sure I was still breathing, still functioning on a basic level. But even her unwavering support wasn't enough to pull me out of the abyss. The constant nagging feeling that I was worthless, that my family was right and I was just being dramatic, had taken root deep inside me. It was a poison I couldn't purge. Eventually, the weight of it all became too much to bear. One night, sitting alone in the silence of my apartment, the pain was so acute, so all-consuming, that I felt like I was physically being crushed. I couldn't see a way out. I couldn't imagine a future where this kind of hurt didn't exist. I thought the only way to make it stop was to end it, to just erase myself from the equation. So I sat down at my computer and wrote. I poured everything onto the page, a long, rambling letter to the world. I wrote about Claire, about Nick, about the look on my parents' faces as they defended her. I wrote about the suffocating loneliness and the feeling that I had been tossed aside like garbage. I explained everything, holding nothing back. Then, with a sense of grim finality, I scheduled the post to publish on my Tumblr account the next day, after I was gone. I took a handful of pills from the bathroom cabinet, more than I could probably count, and lay down on my bed, closing my eyes and just waiting for the darkness to take me. I was ready for it to be over. But Sam, being the incredible, stubborn, perceptive person she is, must have sensed something was wrong. She later told me she had a bad feeling, that my texts had been too short, too distant. She used her spare key to let herself into my apartment, found me unconscious, and immediately called 911. I guess they got to me just in time, because the next thing I knew, I was waking up in a sterile white hospital room, the beeping of a machine a steady, annoying rhythm in my ears. I was groggy, confused, and profoundly disappointed to be alive. They put me on a suicide watch after that, and honestly, looking back, it was the best thing that could have happened to me. It was a forced pause, a sterile environment where I was away from all the triggers, away from the people who had hurt me. During my time in the hospital, the only family members who visited were my grandparents. Not my parents, not Claire, just my mom's parents. They didn't come with lectures or demands for forgiveness. They just sat with me, held my hand, and let me talk when I wanted to, or just sit in comfortable silence when I didn't. They listened, truly listened. They saved me in more ways than they could ever know. When I was finally discharged, they were the ones who picked me up. They didn't take me back to my apartment. They took me to their house. They told me I could stay as long as I needed, no questions asked. I cut off everyone else, and for the first time in what felt like a lifetime, cocooned in the safety and unconditional love of my grandparents' home, I felt like maybe, just maybe, I could start to heal. Living with my grandparents was like breathing clean air for the first time after years of suffocation. I can't even begin to explain how grateful I am for them. They didn't push, they didn't pry. They created a safe, quiet space for me to just be. I was still a mess, still struggling with the heavy blanket of depression, but for the first time, I felt like I had a real support system, a foundation to build on. But even though I was physically safe and emotionally protected, the fallout from the bomb I had dropped on my own life was just beginning to spread. I had completely cut off my parents and Claire. I blocked them on every platform imaginable. Facebook, Instagram, my phone number, everything. I didn't want to hear their excuses, their gaslighting, their twisted version of reality. They hadn't been there for me when I was at my lowest, so as far as I was concerned, they had forfeited any right to be in my life. What I didn't know, what I was too lost in my own fog of recovery to notice, was that my best friend Sam was out there fighting a war on my behalf. She was absolutely furious about what had happened, about the role my family had played in my breakdown, and she wasn't about to let them get away with it scot-free. She was a fiercely loyal friend, and her loyalty had a righteous, vengeful streak. One day, out of the blue, I got a text from her. It just said, "I did something, but I think you'll like it." My heart sank. "Uh-oh," I texted back. "What did you do?" Her reply was almost instantaneous. "Don't be mad, but I shared your note, the one you posted on Tumblr. I made sure everyone saw it." I was shocked at first. A wave of anxiety washed over me. I didn't want to air my dirty laundry to the world. It felt shameful, private. But the more I thought about it, the more a different feeling took over. Screw it. If they didn't care about the devastation they had caused, why should I care if the whole world knew what they had done? And when I say Sam shared it, I mean she went nuclear. She posted it on Facebook, tagged my parents, Claire, and Nick directly in the post, and wrote a scathing introduction calling them out for their hypocrisy and cruelty. She went full-on, no-holds-barred savage. The post went viral within our small community, and then some. Sam had over 1,000 friends on Facebook, and people started sharing it like crazy. It spread through our high school alumni network, through old coworkers, through people I barely even knew. My phone, which had been silent for months, started blowing up. I was getting texts and messages from people I hadn't spoken to in years, all of them saying the same thing: how messed up my family was, how sorry they were for what I went through, and how they couldn't believe Claire and Nick were capable of such a thing. But that wasn't even the craziest part. It wasn't just people I knew who were outraged. It was people they knew. My mom had cultivated this reputation in her church as being the perfect, wholesome, God-fearing woman. When people in her congregation saw Sam's post, saw how she had treated her own daughter, they were incensed. They didn't just whisper about it, they acted. The church elders actually confronted her, and she was asked to leave the congregation. She was essentially excommunicated from the social and spiritual center of her life. I heard she tried to apologize or explain, but no one wanted to hear it. She was branded a hypocrite, and her social life, the one she had so carefully curated, evaporated overnight. My dad didn't escape unscathed either. He lost a ton of his friends, men he'd known for decades. They were disgusted by how he had sided with Claire, by how he had told me to just get over it. Some of his closest friends, guys from his bowling league and his work, just straight up cut him off. He was seen as a cold, heartless man who had failed his daughter, and they didn't want to be associated with that. And Claire? Oh man, Claire got it the worst. I don't even know how she managed to show her face in public. People were calling her a homewrecker, a backstabber, every name in the book. Some of her closest friends, her bridesmaids-in-waiting, ditched her, saying they wanted nothing to do with someone who would betray their own sister like that. I heard she got into screaming matches with people in public, at the grocery store, at the coffee shop, because strangers would recognize her from the post and call her out. I'm not going to lie, a dark, satisfied part of me was happy to hear she was getting a taste of her own medicine. It felt like karma, like the universe was finally balancing the scales. The digital wildfire Sam had started eventually burned itself out, but the landscape it left behind was unrecognizable. My parents were social pariahs. Claire, unable to handle the constant judgment and side-eye glances from everyone in town, packed up and moved to another city, a fresh start she didn't deserve. Nick, the final piece of that wretched puzzle, had been shipped off by his ultra-religious family to some kind of Bible camp retreat to find God again after his transgression. He was gone for months, and by the time he came back, he and Claire had broken up. I didn't need the details. I could guess that the immense pressure and public shame had been too much for their flimsy, betrayal-built relationship to withstand. Good riddance to bad rubbish. During all of this, I was trying, really trying to focus on myself. My grandparents had gotten me into therapy, and I was slowly, painstakingly starting to make progress. It was like clearing rubble from a demolition site. It was slow, heavy work, but I was doing it. I told myself I wasn't interested in their misery, that their downfall didn't matter to me. But deep down, hearing about how their lives were imploding felt like justice. It was a visceral, primal satisfaction. They were finally getting a fraction of the pain they had so casually inflicted on me. One afternoon, my grandma sat me down at the kitchen table, her expression gentle. "Your mom tried to call," she said softly. "She wants to talk." I just rolled my eyes. Why now? Why, after months of silence, did she suddenly want to talk? She hadn't cared when I was lying in a hospital bed, so why should I care about her need for absolution now? My grandma just nodded, understanding my reaction without me having to say a word. "I know, honey," she said, patting my hand, "but I wanted you to know." I thought about it for a fleeting second. Was I curious? A tiny part of me, the part that still craved a mother's love, was. But the larger, stronger part of me, the part that had been forged in the fire of their betrayal, was absolutely not. My mom had made her bed, and now she had to lie in it, alone. I wasn't about to give her the satisfaction of thinking she could waltz back into my life after everything she'd done. It wasn't just my mom either. A few days later, a notification popped up on Instagram. I had forgotten to block her there. It was a message from Claire. It was a long, rambling apology full of "I'm so sorry" and "I never meant to hurt you" and "I miss you so much." I didn't even read the whole thing. I just deleted it, hit the block button, and threw my phone across the couch. I had nothing to say to her. In my eyes, she was still dead to me, and no amount of digital pleading could change that. After that, things finally started to quiet down. The storm had passed. Living with my grandparents was the best medicine. They gave me the space to heal at my own pace, and they never once pressured me to forgive anyone. I started to feel like myself again, like the person I was before Nick, before Claire, before the betrayal had defined me. I started to believe that I could actually move on, that I could build a life that was entirely mine. But I wasn't naive. I knew the scar they had left on my soul would always be there. It would fade over time, but it would never fully disappear. The pain of what my family had done would always be a part of my history. But I didn't need them anymore. I had my grandparents, my rock. I had Sam, my warrior. And for the first time in a long time, that felt like enough. It felt like everything. Then, one day, about a year after the whole ordeal, I was at the grocery store, just trying to decide between two brands of pasta sauce when I saw her. It was Claire. She was back in town. She looked different. Thinner, tired, the golden glow she used to have completely extinguished.
Our eyes met across the produce aisle, and for a moment, the world stopped again. But this time, I didn't feel that earth-shattering pain. I just felt nothing. She started walking towards me, her face a mask of panic and desperation, and I knew I was about to get a face-to-face apology I never asked for. Seeing Claire in that grocery store, her face etched with a desperation that was almost pathetic, didn't ignite the rage I might have expected. Instead, it felt like looking at a stranger, a ghost from a life I had long since left behind. She rushed towards me, words spilling out of her in a torrent of tears and regret. She was sorry. She was so sorry. She missed me. Her life had fallen apart. She had no one. She understood why I hated her. She just kept repeating, "I'm sorry," like a broken record. I stood there and let her run out of steam, letting her words wash over me without touching me. When she was done, I just looked at her and said calmly and clearly, "I don't hate you, Claire, but I don't want you in my life. Goodbye." And then I turned and walked away, leaving her standing there amidst the avocados and bananas. I didn't look back. It was weirdly anticlimactic. I thought seeing her would be this big, dramatic event, but it wasn't. It was just over. That last encounter gave me a closure I didn't even know I needed. I was truly done with them. For a while after that, life was quiet, peaceful even. I was working part-time, taking a few classes at the local community college, and spending time with my grandparents and Sam. I was building a new routine, a new normal. I wasn't that sad, broken girl anymore. My family didn't have any power over me. Then, one random Friday night, as Sam and I were sprawled on the couch binge-watching a cheesy reality show, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. An unknown number. I almost ignored it, my standard policy for potential spam or scam calls, but something, a little flicker of intuition, made me pause. I swiped to answer. "Hello?" A shaky voice on the other end hesitated. "Hey, it's Nick." Nick. I hadn't heard that name spoken in years. He was a ghost, a distant memory of a boy I used to love. I hadn't heard from him since his family had sent him away to find Jesus. For a second, my mind went blank. Then, a familiar anger started to simmer. "What the hell do you want?" I asked, my voice cold. He sounded desperate. "I need to talk to you. It's important." Important? After all this time? I wasn't interested in reopening old wounds. "Look, Nick, I've moved on. I don't care about your apology. Whatever happened between you and Claire is your problem now." I was about to hang up when he said something that made my blood run cold. "It's not just about me and Claire," he said quickly. "There's something you don't know, something about your family." My hand froze on the end call button. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "I'm not the only one who betrayed you," he said, his voice cracking. "Your family. There's more to the story, a lot more." I didn't want to believe him. I thought he was just trying to drag me back into the drama, to ease his own conscience by making me feel sorry for him. But there was something in his tone, a raw, broken honesty that didn't feel like a lie. Against every fiber of my better judgment, I agreed to meet him the next day. I don't know why. Maybe a part of me needed to hear it, to get the final, complete puzzle piece, no matter how ugly it was. Or maybe I was just a glutton for punishment. Either way, I was about to walk back into the past, and I had a sinking feeling it was going to be so much worse than I ever imagined. The next day, we met at a neutral, brightly lit coffee shop. I hadn't seen Nick in years, and he looked like a shadow of his former self. He was thinner, his face was pale, and he had deep, dark circles under his eyes. Life had clearly not been kind to him. He looked like he'd been chewed up and spit out. A small, unwelcome part of me felt a pang of pity, but I quickly stamped it out. He had made his bed. We sat in an awkward silence for a moment before I finally cut to the chase. "You said there's something I don't know," I said, my tone flat, "so just say it." He took a deep breath, his hands trembling around his coffee cup. And then he told me. He told me that my parents had known about him and Claire for months before I found out. Not only did they know, but they approved. My mom, he said, had actively encouraged Claire to pursue him. She thought I was too clingy, too attached, and that Claire was a better, more suitable match. My own mother had been playing matchmaker behind my back, trying to set my boyfriend up with my own sister. The room started to spin. I felt like I was going to be sick. All this time, I had thought the betrayal was a crime of passion between two people. I had no idea it was a premeditated conspiracy, orchestrated by the one person who was supposed to be on my side unconditionally. I felt like the world's biggest idiot. How could I have not seen it? How could I have been so blind? The drive from the coffee shop to my parents' house was a blur of white-hot rage. I wasn't thinking, I was just reacting. Every word Nick had said echoed in my head, each one a fresh stab of betrayal. My mother, the mastermind, the puppeteer who had pulled the strings, watching me dance and cry and break, all while thinking she was doing what was best. The hypocrisy, the cruelty, the sheer audacity of it was so monumental it was almost surreal. I didn't bother knocking when I got to their house. I still had the old key on my keychain, a relic from a life that no longer existed. I let myself in, slamming the door behind me with a crack that made them both jump. They were in the kitchen, the scene of so many happy family memories, now the stage for the final act of this tragedy. My mom's face went pale when she saw me. My dad just looked confused, like he wasn't sure if he should be happy or terrified. I didn't waste a second on pleasantries. "Did you know?" I demanded, my voice shaking with fury. "About Claire and Nick? Did you set them up?" My mom's eyes darted around the room, her mind racing, looking for an escape, an excuse. "Why does that matter now?" she finally said, her voice laced with that condescending tone she always used when she thought I was being dramatic. That was it. That was the spark that lit the fuse. I slammed my hand down on the kitchen table, the rattling of dishes a sharp, violent sound. "Why does it matter? Are you serious? You ruined my life. You stood by and watched me fall apart, and you did nothing because you were the one who pushed me." My dad's face changed then, a slow dawning of horror as he looked from my furious face to my mom's guilty one. "What is she talking about?" he asked her, his voice low and dangerous. My mom tried to regain control, to spin her web of lies. "You were too attached to him," she said, addressing me but looking at my dad. "It wasn't healthy. I thought if Claire was with, you'd finally see he wasn't right for you. I was doing what was best for you." And in that moment, I finally understood. She didn't think she had done anything wrong. In her twisted, narcissistic mind, she was the hero of this story, the wise mother who had orchestrated a painful life lesson for her own good. I turned to my dad, my voice dangerously quiet. "Did you know?" He looked at me, his face a mask of pain and disbelief, then back at her. "No," he said, the word barely audible. I had no idea she was involved. He looked like he was gonna be sick. But I was done. I was done with all of them. There was no excuse, no justification that could ever make this okay. "I can't believe you," I said, cutting off my mom's next attempt at an explanation. "You didn't care about what was best for me. You just wanted control. You've always wanted control. And because of you, I lost everything." I looked my dad in the eye. "And you told me to grow up. You chose her over me, too." I could see my dad starting to unravel, his anger finally boiling over as he turned on my mom. But I didn't stay to watch the fallout. I had seen enough. "I will never forgive you for this," I said to my mom, my voice filled with a cold, final certainty. "Ever." And with that, I walked out of the house, leaving their broken world behind me for good. On the drive back to my grandparents' house, a strange sense of calm settled over me. Confronting her hadn't given me the cathartic release I'd imagined. It had just confirmed what I already knew in my heart. These people were not my family. They never had been. When I got back, I told my grandparents everything. They were shocked, but not surprised. They just held me and told me they loved me. In the days that followed, my dad sent a few texts, desperate apologies I never read. Claire tried to contact me through a mutual friend, a plea for forgiveness I ignored. Nick disappeared back into the past where he belonged. I have my own life now. It's not perfect, but it's real, and it's mine. It's a life built on a foundation of genuine love and respect with the people who chose to stand by me. My grandparents, my best friend Sam. They are my real family. The others are just a memory, a painful lesson in the darkest corners of human nature. I'm finally at peace. It took a long time, and it cost me everything, but I'm okay with where I am. My family might still be out there somewhere, living in the wreckage they created, but I'm not there. I'm here, and for the first time in years, it feels like I'm home.